Bear Independent Brief, 27 October 25. America, the Estados Unidos, may be just around the corner from what's being called, quote, the greatest hunger catastrophe in America since the Great Depression, end quote. In the words of Joel Berg, interesting ethno-religious name, CEO of Hunger Free America. This Saturday, nearly 42 million Americans face the potential loss of food assistance as the federal government shutdown threatens to cut off SNAP, or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, funding. The USDA sent letters to regional SNAP directors warning that funding will run out at the end of October, directing them to hold payments until further notice. Every dollar of SNAP spending generates more than $1.50 in GDP increase, according to the USDA. Oh, so this is basically, is that the argument? It's not just that, there's people that need food benefits. It's also that for every dollar the government extorts from its citizenry via taxation and then passes through the hands of people on SNAP, that then we get a 50% bump in gross domestic product. So there's an economic argument to it as well. It's good for the economy. Socialism. Do we already need to issue caveats and asterisks? Yeah, there are many good people that use the SNAP program and other government assistance programs to get through low points in their life so they can then resume making progress. Yes, there are. And there are many, many people that simply abuse the system. And then there's also many people who are politicians who provide these benefits to people that are not citizens of the United States of America. And these non-citizens that receive these benefits receive, in many cases, more than actual citizens who have actually paid into the program. So one could make the argument, reasonably so, I would say, that the system, it's very broken, very bad people. They're coming here, they're taking your cornbread and your eggs and your cow juice, and there's none left over for you. Very bad people. The whole thing is less than ideal, is the phrase that I would use. So according to the USDA and the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, every dollar of SNAP spending generates more than $1.50 in GDP. Oh, tell me your economy's make-believe without telling me your economy's make-believe. However, there are also significant implications for local economies and supply chains. Pause. If you have a couple of doll hairs burning a hole in your pocket, you may want to do your grocery shopping before SNAP runs out, because one of the potential threat vectors here, especially in high population density areas, but certainly capable of affecting low population density areas as well, because there are people on SNAP across all socioeconomic strata. One of the potential threat vectors here is that there will be riots for food. Doesn't mean it will happen, but it definitely has the potential. If you remember during the early days of COVID-19, where is Klaus Schwab, America's, the world's greatest supervillain? I know, he retired. Yeah, allegedly. COVID-19. Yeah, shut up, Klaus. If you remember the early days of COVID, certain retailers, like the world's largest retailer, you might have heard of them, Walmart, shut down in-person shopping experiences and went to a pickup/delivery only model. That's entirely possible as well. That means that the flow of resources in and out of those hubs, aka Walmarts, would be more controlled than usual because they don't want people rioting inside of their building. You might just think about getting a couple extra sacks of groceries if you got the money. It's to avoid all of those shenanigans. Nobody wants to end up, having to defend their own life with their weapon at the Walmart because they need another loaf of bread. Bread asterisk. The food's not food, people. It's part of why we talk about moving from a net consumption lifestyle to a net production lifestyle, because on a long enough timeline, it doesn't matter how many resources you have stockpiled, although you should certainly be stockpiling resources. At some point, you need to produce resources, because if this thing goes kinetic, long-term, asymmetric domestic warfare, well, that's a lot of words, Bear. Yeah, I know. Listen again if you need to fully digest what I just said. If this thing goes kinetic, long-term, asymmetric, domestic warfare, the control of resources amongst the populace is a significant and historical bit of leverage that has been used to affect the outcome of situations like that. In other words, you don't want to stand in at somebody else's breadline. You want to be your own breadline. More than 250,000 food retailers across the country depend on the $8 billion in monthly SNAP spending. $8 billion. Billion dollars. When 42 million people suddenly lose food purchasing power, grocery stores feel the impact and will likely be forced to compensate by increasing prices. Not on my watch. The U.S. Conference of Mayors, oh, that's a thing, didn't know that was a thing, has urged the USDA not to let SNAP benefits lap, noting that the program helps stabilize local economies. Yeah, and quietly the mayors are like, please no riots in my town, sir. Please no riots. Beyond economics, there's the human element that could drive increased desperation and crime as families struggle to feed themselves through what will be uncharted territory for modern America. You've probably heard that we're just 3 missed meals from chaos type thing. Yeah, that's a reasonable assessment. Step 1, don't be where the problem is. Step 2, don't be part of the problem. Step 3, develop creative solutions to the problem. Now, I would also submit, let's just take a moment here. Bear, you're not supposed to have this much commentary and analysis on Mondays. You're supposed to just read the brief. I'm busy. I have things to do. You're wasting my time. No, cool. Unsubscribe. We are commanded to love our neighbors as ourselves. Well, who's my neighbor? And generally speaking, when we start asking the question of who's my neighbor, shut up, I'm awake. When we start asking the question of who's my neighbor, what that means is we're looking for reasons to not love somebody. Now, not all people are lovable. You shall know them by their fruits, says Mashiach, Messiah. Behold, I come swiftly to reward each man according to his works. So what people do is generally a very good indicator of what their heart condition is. But that being said, we as a Christian nation, love it or hate it, are supposed to love our neighbors. We're supposed to forsake not the widow and the orphan. We're supposed to be charitable. And that ability to be charitable has been in many cases severely limited because of the usury that we are charged and the excess taxation that we all experience, even if you're a W-2 employee with a 20, 30, 40, 50% of your total income, your gross revenue, going to different governments via taxation, and not just payroll tax, but fuel tax and grocery taxes and mortgage taxes and property taxes and tax. Nice car that you bought that you paid sales tax on. Now pay registration on that. Now get insurance and pay sales tax on the insurance, and then get an oil change with more sales tax and tires with sales tax. You get the point. Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. Yeah, roger that. But when Caesar wants 50% of your gross income, that's a little bit different than a stater, a single silver coin. So, because we pay so much to the man, it limits our ability to be charitable. And it's just another example of government taking purview from the citizenry. Because we are supposed to be our neighbor's keeper. We're supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves, be our brother's keeper. We're not supposed to outsource that to the government. But it seems as if that ship has sailed. And oh, what a great job the government's doing at it, by the way. USDA officials have said that they can't legally tap into the program's $5 to $6 billion contingency fund. Now, so they have a $5 to $6 billion contingency fund. However, they spend $8 billion a month. So they have 3 weeks of backup. They have 3 weeks of backup, which they cannot legally tap, arguing these reserves are meant for natural disasters like hurricanes and floods, not government shutdowns. Oddly, this position contradicts the department's own earlier shutdown plan, which stated that, quote, congressional intent is evident that SNAP's operations should continue since the program has been provided with a multi-year contingency fund. Multi-year, with 3 weeks of reserve. Somebody sounds a little high on their own supply here. Food banks are already sounding the alarm that they cannot possibly fill the gap. A thought occurs to me. There were several of you throughout the years that have provided boots on the ground intel from your experiences working at food banks. Haven't heard from you in a while. If you're out there and you're still listening, please, I'd love to know what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. Intel@bearindependent.com. Intel@bearindependent.com. And for anybody else with your boots on the ground reporting, please email it to intel@bearindependent.com. Can't get my own freaking email correct. Got a lot of emails. Intel@bearindependent.com. And that will be on Friday's show. So we do that weekly every Friday. Tell me, what are you seeing? Catherine D'Amato, CEO of the Greater Boston Food Bank, estimates that suspending SNAP benefits would create a deficit of up to 56 million meals in Massachusetts alone in the month of November. Tell me your system is fragile without telling me your system is fragile. She said, there's no way that our charitable food network or the system in this country could provide that much food overnight or quickly. It's an impossible task. Louisiana is preparing to use $150 million in monthly state funding to continue benefits, with Senate President Cameron Henry explaining, quote, it's a choice between using money that we have or people going hungry, end quote. Virginia has similarly declared a state of emergency and pledged to provide food benefits using state funds. Typically, when there's a state declaration of emergency, those funds are then later replaced, subsidized, offset by federal funds. So this is just a temporary diversion of federal taxpayer dollars. However, the state declaration of emergency has to be adopted by the federal government. So there might be a little song and dance there. However, many states simply lack the budget capacity to shoulder this burden. And the USDA has made it clear it won't reimburse states that have their own money to cover the shortfall. We'll see. Just because they made it clear right now. They also said they have a multi-year contingency plan and they have 3 weeks of reserves. So it's important to note that even if Congress resolves the shutdown before November, new SNAP work requirements passed earlier this year are set to take effect on 1 November. These requirements are projected to push an estimated 2.4 million people off the program over the next decade. So we're reducing the number of people on SNAP via a work requirement by 5% over 10 years. And that's something that government will clap about as if it's somehow efficient. This comes on top of the summer elimination of approximately $187 billion in SNAP funding through 2034. All right. Potential threat vectors here: civil unrest, for sure, and supply chain as well. People behaving badly, likely localized, not necessarily organized at a state or a federal level, but certainly locally. Desperate people do desperate things, and what we will have to rightly divide here, if this comes to pass, and if it goes kinetic in the worst ways possible, with desperate people doing desperate things, is not all of these people are bad people. Some of these people are good people in a bad spot. Some of these people are bad people in a good spot, taking advantage of other good people who are just trying to earn a living in 2025 and are being fleeced by their own government to redistribute wealth from one to another. I'm not for good people going without meals. I don't know how many tens of thousands of meals, it could be in the hundreds of thousands at this point, Grindstone Ministries has served to people who have lost everything. It's a lot. So clearly, based upon our actions, we're for people who need to get fed, getting fed. I am not for people taking advantage, though. And the problem with extremely large programs is that there's always edge cases. There's always the very good people that are not getting what they need, and the very bad people that are getting what they, air quote, need without in any way being entitled to it. And so then it's like, do we not do the right thing because of these edge cases? No, you do the right thing, but it's not the government's job to do. It's ours to do, and it's incredibly difficult to do today because the excess revenue that should be produced no longer exists on the individual household level because of the devaluation of the US dollar and excessive taxation, which one could argue is precisely their intent. See, if they just print money out of thin air, which they do, why? Why do they need your taxes? Why do they need my taxes? And it's unfortunate, but the answer seems to be is it's a mechanism of control. It limits the amount of deployable resources you can bring to bear to love your neighbor as yourself, which therefore makes more people dependent upon the government. And when people are dependent upon the government now has leverage in order to control the behaviors and the thoughts of the citizenry under its thumb. I'm no fan of that. Yeah, that's about it for today. SNAP benefits and everything that goes along with it. We will have international news later in the week, probably Wednesday. And then we will also have your intel, your boots on the ground, probably Friday. Make sure you subscribe, stay tuned. Shout out to the Patreon fam, the economic engine of the Bear Nation. You can find that at bearindependent.com, or just go to Patreon and search for Bear Independent. And it's not an I love me, you should love me too Patreon page. It's not just give me your money. No, overwhelming value. There's a significant amount of pre-recorded content there, ranging in the thousands of videos. There are exclusive live streams every week for Patreon only. Your own promo code, blah, 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 blah. So check that out. There's also a lot of like-minded individuals over there, and the Bear Independent Discord, which is a perk of Patreon. So for identifying and coordinating with other good people, all perks of Patreon. Nephews.radical.corn. I've been training yesterday and today. Some very good people. Got another class coming up in November. Train the Trainer, 9th, 10th, and 11th. And then we have Refuge Defender Public Church Security class coming, I believe it's February 8th. And then we also have a significant amount of private trainings to do. So if your agency, department, church, mutual assistance group, bowling league, knitting club, whatever, would like some private classes and or a quote on equipment, please email us, admin@refugemedical.com. Use the chat function on the store or call the store. All that contact information is right there on the website, refugemedical.com. And, of course, we have the best first aid kits on planet Earth. I was talking to some people recently about the concept of ruck, truck, house, plane. Yes, sweetie.
Hello?
Good morning. I'll be right there. The weasel is awake, getting ready for school. Ruck, truck, house, plane, a.k.a. a layered approach to medicine, a.k.a. crew-served medicine. And you should have an IFAC or a blowout kit on you, whether you're plain clothes or you're operationally operating like an operator. That's just to deal with the injury at the point of injury. Then what do? Well, we elevate. What if there's nothing to elevate to? Or what if, in order to elevate, to get to definitive care, to get to the hospital, is not going to be in the golden hour? It's going to be hours, maybe days. What if there's no more hospital anymore? So we want to have layered capabilities from on our person up through whatever your facsimile of a field hospital is going to look like, including one of y'all wrote in. It was like, what's up? We're a mutual assistance group. We're just civilians doing apocalypse stuff. Can you price a field hospital for us? I can. So, it don't matter who you are and what you're doing. As long as you're a good person, you're not an enemy combatant, we got you. Whatever you need, from a pack of gauze up to a field hospital. Check us out, refugemedical.com. Make sure to use your promo code BearNation. That gets you 10% off everything in the store. And don't be afraid to sign up for the newsletter, because we're not spamming your inbox with a bunch of crap. There's some really good deals that go out there. And with that, happy Monday. Go out there, be the light. Don't be afraid of anything. Yes, it looks freaking weird, my brothers and sisters, on the horizon. But we got to remember, we were made for this time. And the Father didn't make a mistake when he made us in his image for this time. And so if it truly goes weird, truly gets kinetic, Ote, Dad looked at this situation and he said, you know what? I know how to counteract this. I'm going to put you in the world as a bulwark against this satanic stupidity. Don't forget that. Don't lose sight of that. There was intent when you were created for this time. Go read Revelation 21. There are no cowards in the kingdom. And courage is not being unafraid. Courage is being afraid, but going anyway. So we must conduct ourselves as sons and daughters of the Most High. Be the light. Stay salty. I'll see you guys when I see you.